podcast. If you're ready to grow, then let's go. This is the Lincoln County Podcast. Hey, yo, Matt, let's start the show.
Thank you to our sponsors, K.Flynn Insurance, elect Bruce Becker for the Lincoln County Fire Board, and the Crafty Midwestern Mommy for their continued support of the Lincoln County Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to Lincoln County Podcast. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting this podcast. It has been an awesome experience. Make sure to check out our sponsors and support them, because without them, none of this would be possible. So I have a great guest on today, and really excited to kind of dive into what she does and everything that she has going on here in Lincoln County. So we're going to kick it off and get started by letting her introduce herself. How are you doing today?
Hey, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm really excited to be here. And
Awesome.
again, I just appreciate it. My name is Sheany Miller. I am a health insurance specialist, and I'm working at K.Flynn Insurance. K.Flynn has been a pillar in Lincoln County community for over 40 years. And we have a very solid foundation in, personal lines insurance, commercial insurance. And I feel like I'm kind of bringing something new and fresh to the table because I'm just focusing on benefits. And benefits could mean an array of so many different things. But there's really three key touch points that I like to stay within, kind of a niche. So it's going to be individual and family health insurance plans, Medicare, and group benefits for businesses. And then within those three categories, there's just so much that could weave, in between. So of course, there's life insurance, dental and vision plans, standalone indemnity plans, different things like that. So I'm the only one in the office that is writing health insurance right now. Everybody in the office is licensed though. So that's really cool about our agency is no matter who you talk to, even our servicing team, they are licensed for property and casualty. So anything that you're calling and having a question in, they're licensed to help you with that. And then we have about 9 agents. And if I'm wrong on that number, please don't come for me. I'm pretty sure we have 9 writing agents right now. But again, benefit side, I'm kind of a one-man show.
Nice.
So it's nice. It's exciting. It's difficult sometimes, not having somebody to soundboard off of. So the learning curve is very, it's been difficult. That's definitely been a challenge, but the good thing is that K.Flynn is actually an agency partner with Blue Chip Consortium LLC of St. Louis. And so they have been a great resource for me. And it's a great resource for the agency too, as well as our clients, because they provide overhead. They also provide additional resources that we can reach out to. And that's for everything. That's individual plans, Medicare, and group benefits for businesses. And especially with the business side, just that additional backing for benefits to offer businesses to offer their employees. Then it's huge. It's such a great thing to be a part of. Additional trainings that they give us and everything like that. So yeah, that's what I do.
Well, I think people misunderstand too that there's so many different levels to the different insurances.
It's true.
And
yes.
you have to be so particular. One of the first things I learned as a contractor was we had to fill out what I called our quiz or whatever for our insurance. And then once we dove into the medical side, there was so many things that I realized I did wrong in the beginning.
Okay.
Or that I changed, maybe the way I'd filled stuff out, that it's one thing I learned. You have to have, you have to be very careful that you have to have a good accountant. You have to have a good attorney, and you have to have a good insurance person that can really break down what you actually need, because
Right.
there's a lot of misunderstanding on that.
100%. Yes.
And they have to work together. There's been times where I've looked at things and I've went to my attorney and been like, hey, we're grown to 7 figures. What are some things I need to do to protect myself that maybe someone else might not have looked at that way?
Yes.
Your accountant a lot of times wants to save you money, whereas, sometimes in the beginning of a business, you don't need as many deductions because it can hurt you. So having that professional like yourself and everybody at K.Flynn to help walk you through those, I mean, it's There's just so much going on.
It's true. It's a huge benefit. And that's why it's really important when you're choosing the professionals that you're going to be working with, especially from a business owner standpoint. You have to have that level of trust,
Yes.
that they have your best interests at heart. And really, I feel like there's so many professionals that get a bad rap. I feel like sometimes insurance agents kind of fall into that category of, oh, you're overinsuring me or you're overinsuring my home. And there's so many different factors that go into, how things are rated. But as a business owner, it is really important when you're first getting started to realize that these are important things for your startup costs. They're
Yes.
expenses that a lot of people don't take into consideration
No, not at
before
all.
they file for that LLC. And so previously I serviced on the commercial side. And so I've seen that so many times. It's like, what? I need a workers' compensation policy. I don't even have employees.
Yeah.
Okay, but are you subcontracting? So there's a lot of questions that, and what's really good about us, being so reputable in the community is that, you don't have to buy a policy to get the information. You can find an agent and just have a conversation. And that's something that I really like doing is, not necessarily selling, but the consultation side of things. Let's meet, let's work together, let's do a needs analysis, and let's look a whole picture. And then what's cool for me is just the problem solving, finding a solution that's going to fit that client's need, and also fit into budget and fit into, all kinds of things that they're looking for. And if they're not ready to buy, at least I can set them up for, this is what this looks like if you want to implement this. Here's the applications. This is what it looks like. Sit with it. And then when you're ready, let's get it knocked out. Whenever you're ready, give me a call and we'll do it. But a lot of times, people kind of, I don't know, almost jump before they leap before they look kind of thing.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure. And a lot of people just don't understand what it goes into it. I had a lot of trouble when growing the painting company with employees. Our foreman received checks from the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've been there all week. They get their paycheck on Friday, and then they see this big check come from a customer, and they're like, man, Matt's making a lot of money. And it's like, no, you don't realize what the insurance taxes, things like that stuff really adds up, but people don't see that.
Right.
They don't see that part of the business for any business owner.
Mm-hmm.
They don't comprehend that, or people that are wanting to go into business.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I always tell people if they're, say they're a painter and we're discussing going out on their own and not working for boss, take a lot of the things into account.
Right.
Their material costs, the logistics of getting to the jobs, your insurance. It's amazing at how many people really do not understand the insurance side or deductibles and all the breakdowns, that it just goes back to hiring a professional, having
Exactly.
someone like yourself that can break it down, and having someone that doesn't have chips into the game with you, that can go, you know what, I understand that maybe the budget's tight and you're thinking, I just want to spend this much. Because I bet you get that. People are like, I need the payment to be around X,
Right.
But do you have X, Y, and Z in place? And here's why you're probably going to need them. And let's discuss it to educate it, because I find a lot of times with people, they're not buying from you because they don't want to. It's maybe they don't know.
Well, exactly. And I think that is the most common or the most prevalent with what I work with on individual plans. So with legislation currently, all individual plans are ACA. And so a lot of people equate that with Obamacare.
Yeah.
And it's the Affordable Care Act. So the Obama administration is the one who, first got that implemented. But nowadays, everything is ACA. And that's because ACA, Affordable Care Act, it's legislation. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's written into law. So when these carriers, they develop major medical plans, they have to meet certain criteria. They're called EHBs, and that stands for Essential Health Benefits. So in order to be considered a major medical plan, it has to be compliant with so many regulations from different entities. And where that kind of comes down to the client is that the carriers, they have to meet certain criteria. Everything has to go through, the marketplace, and then it just filters out to what is consumer facing. And so they don't see like the backhand stuff. But, an individual shopping on the marketplace and they see a premium, let's say there's like a sticker of $300 a month. For a lot of people, they think that is absolutely just ridiculous. It's so expensive. And I get it because I've actually been there. I've been in those shoes. And so, they come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I just had to renew my plan. This is what I was seeing. Is there anything else available? Because they're in just like this sticky place. And I 100% get it. And so that's kind of where we do, like a teamwork kind of thing. We do the needs analysis, and I want to identify not only what you need, but what your priorities are. Because for individuals, how a health insurance plan is going to go, one thing that you sacrifice, it's a balancing act constantly.
Yes,
so you want a low premium, but you also want a low deductible. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it's, what are you going to prioritize, a lower premium or a lower deductible? And then, okay, so we're going to raise the deductible. What level are you comfortable with? Okay. And then with those plans, they put them in metallic tiers. So I know what I'm looking at, if it's going to be gold, silver, bronze. And so the most unfortunate thing that I see is when the budget is so constrained that we have to go with a lower level plan. But I always make sure that we're going through everything and you're understanding, yes, this is what you're purchasing, and yes, this premium is low, but listen, this is how this coverage is actually going to play out. And that's the biggest thing that I really like to work with individuals on is how this is going to affect you in real life. Because yeah, smooth sailing, everyday life, all you're doing is paying a premium monthly, but then what happens when that car accident happens? Or,
when you call to use it.
Yeah, exactly. When it's finally time to utilize this plan, there's so many misconceptions about how health insurance works anyway. So, when those bills keep coming in, and that's when the stress level really hits, is when it's actually being utilized on a very heavy level. And it's people are just like, what is happening here? So the education part of it, working with, the needs and the priorities, and finding a good balance. And whatever we do choose, at least at the very minimum, making sure that those individuals understand how that coverage is going to work, and understand, where those bills, how that total is going to come about.
I am Julie Forster with Crafty Midwestern Mommy, your local boutique embroidery and fabric store. I sell fabric as well as sewing notions, and also teach classes. And then we also, on the other side of our business, do machine embroidery, custom apparel for local businesses, and just personalized gifts. Again, the store's name is Crafty Midwestern Mommy, and that's how you can find us on all social media platforms as well as our website.
Well, and educating them without being salesy is always very hard. I used to, when I first started bidding paint jobs, I would just shut up. So what we're doing, I didn't want to sound like I was talking down. I'm a very confident person, so I was very cautious not to come off like a jerk, or like I was talking down to a homeowner or something. Oh, it's a woman, so I'm talking down to her. But as the business grew and I kept having headaches over stuff that was a very simple explanation upon me bidding, maybe breaking down how our crews operate. We noticed a big uptick post-COVID of a lot of 20-somethings, early 30-year-olds hiring help to work on their first home. They didn't have experience with contractors and hired anyone to work in their house for. So they didn't understand things like, you have to be home, or we have to have access.
Right.
We need someone there to look at. Well, I got to look at the job and about, well, yeah, you purchased it. I would like for you to tell us that you like what we did. It is painting.
I would like to see that.
If we're building some shelves, or, if we were a carpenter and building shelves, I'd want you to, tell me if, well, I don't want them crooked. Obviously I'm going to give my input, but it's in your home. So we found there was a lot of times that I would really spend a lot of time educating customers. Or here recently, there's a lot of contractors out there that sub out their work. Like they'll come in like me, nice work shirt, whatever, talk to you, and then they'll go sub the work to someone that doesn't even work for them.
Oh, okay.
It's not their company. Maybe it's Bob's Painting or Bob's Flooring or whatever, and they send them in.
Got it.
So I didn't realize that. So I spent a lot of time to educate clients that my employees they all work for me. They've been with me for years. And I think that comes into play with insurance, with you're educating them. People just know, well, I have an insurance card. This means I don't pay a bunch of money when I go. they don't realize that different coverages, different levels, like you said, low deductible, high premium, you know, which way do you want it to work?
Right, exactly.
Or maybe like for me, my dad worked at General Motors. We had what he used to call a Cadillac plan. We paid nothing
Yeah.
for anything, no
Right.
deductibles, no nothing. That's how I thought insurance worked. And then I went straight into the union myself. And once I got out of the union, bought my own insurance. I'm like, wow, okay,
Yeah,
this is different. And
it's
when
a
I was
big
single, I
shocker.
just paid cash for everything because it was just me.
Sure, and that's a big thing too. I think, and I don't mean this to be political in any way,
Yeah.
but young, healthy men, they really, you guys, you get away with it, okay?
Well, we don't have to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, the medical expenses are
full.
just exactly, and what are you going to do? Go to urgent care? So
Yeah.
a lot of times, you know, if it's not going to be utilized, I don't want those type of clients paying, you know, $300 a month or $200 a month for something that they're not going to use fully. And so in which case I do an offering. So it's like, okay, this is your need. This is what we got. Why don't we look into a short-term plan for you? Because it's a lot cheaper. You're going to be covered for if there's, you know, a car accident, hospital stay, emergency room. There's a copayment for a doctor if you do see it, or urgent care. And I have a lot of young guys that just smooth sailing on that. And it just saves them so much right now. Legislation is changing, so I'm not going to be able to do that for too much longer. But, you know, you just roll with it. And I think that's really important, is just identifying professionals that, you know the market and that care about your well-being as well. Because I'm never going to want to recommend a plan to somebody that isn't in their best interest. And, you know, it doesn't matter how much somebody's premium is. My commissions are the same. It's just a straight, you know, fee across the board, and it's built in, so nobody actually pays me. So it really makes no difference. I want to save you as much money as I possibly can.
And you want to take care of them. This is someone you're going to deal with, you know, for a long period of time. I know that's something you have your insurance, or you go to them, and that's normally you stick with that.
Yes.
So what made you kind of want to get into this field? Like, is this something maybe
it was just
good at sales,
happenstance?
or how does it work?
It was 100% happenstance. So I've been in sales for actually probably all of my early 20s. And so really how that started was phone sales, like cell phones. And I worked, it wasn't Sprint. It was like a third-party retailer of Sprint. And that company, I mean, they were just so cool. It was the first company that I worked for that was actually like a corporate large company. And so when I first got hired, I think I was like 23 or 22. I had to learn their core values, and I'd never worked.
Cool. They have those.
Yeah, and I'd never worked for a company that had that, and it was really cool because, you know, of course, it was like be ethical, and you know what typical companies would instill. But then the last one was have fun, and they really tried to implement like a fun factor, because it was sales and they knew they were hiring, you know, younger generations. And, you know, let's get this energy up. Let's be disruptive. Like a lot of the stores that they operated were kiosks and malls. So they wanted those employees to get out of your kiosk, go talk to people, reel them
be
in.
energetic.
Yeah, exactly. And so because the disruption was pushed so much, it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. I had never sold anything before. But I think my personality was really good for it. I never, you know, I think one time they kept like scores of records in different districts and things. I think I made like a top list one time. That was pretty cool, but I was never like a top performer. I did okay.
Did you have a goal set to make that?
Sure. Like you had different goals. And that was another thing that I learned there too, is metrics are so important. Measuring and keeping on top of your metrics. If you're going to be on sales, that is so key. You can't just willy-nilly be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to sell this month and not know what you're doing. You have to stay on top of your metrics, and you have to watch and go back through past months and see what your performance was, because I think a lot of winners have the mentality that you're trying to outperform yourself. Like whatever you did last month or 3 months ago, you're constantly trying to do better. And that's what I always implement in myself too. It's like, you know, no matter how far I've made it, I can always go further. I can always work harder, get better. And that's really what I'm trying to do here in this role too, is just I'm striving for excellence. So, you know, I'm a beginner, or I was a beginner. Right now, I feel like I'm very confident in the knowledge that I have. I'm very confident in what I can offer my clients. But I also am always aspiring to be better. So, like this version of Sheany Miller insurance agent next year, I mean, maybe I'll just be so much better and, growing constantly. So the metrics is what I learned there. Just kind of pushing myself out of those comfort zones, and customer service was a big one too.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I don't know if you were in sales when you were younger too, but man, that was so hard. Just I worked in fast food. That was like my first job, and customers, oh, that was the worst.
I never did fast food.
It was, people are so mean. Oh
Everybody
my gosh.
should work a customer-facing customer service job, some type of retail for 6 months. It would teach them how to be nicer to human beings.
Absolutely. And just like a baseline respect, I think too. And, people are people, and when you deal with people, you have to just have this understanding that everybody is coming from the place that they're coming from. Everybody's got stuff going on. But when you're on, that other side of that, and you're taking in, negative interactions, it's very hard. And especially when you're young. So teenagers working fast food, it's really hard, but it's a good learning experience. And then that was part of it as well. Well, that job was cool because I got to transfer to St. Louis with it. So when my husband is from O'Fallon, like St. Paul area. Yep. And so whenever he graduated, we went to the same college in Northwest Missouri. And so when he graduated, he wanted to move back home. So I was able to transfer out here. I was working in St. Anne, and it was not nice. That was an adventure.
How many years ago was that?
That was, that was probably in 2014.
Okay.
And I was right there on the Rock Road, and it was just crazy because I come from a very small rural town, very similar to Troy. I would say probably smaller. I had never driven.
St. Anne's a little different.
Yes. Well, like Highway 70 was a trip. I had never driven on a 2-lane highway before. It was so hard. I had panic attacks all the time.
Where'd you live at? Did you live in St. Anne's?
So I didn't live in St. Anne's.
Okay.
So we moved.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was commuting from Lake St. Louis. So Lake St. Louis wasn't too bad. And I actually,
was the store at in St. Anne's?
It was on the Rock Road somewhere.
Rock Road, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't even.
If you're talking St. Anne's out from the police station. So that's where my family's all from. I was born, when I was born, we lived in Breckenridge Hills.
Okay.
Which is right down from there. But my dad's elementary school he went to was down right by St. Anne's. And I ran around that area. When I first opened my Taekwondo school, my friends all lived off Fifi.
Okay.
So I would go down to the Rock Road at Fifi and run around that area. We did scavenger hunt one night, running in and out of stores up and down the Rock Road.
Oh my gosh.
Very familiar. I just boxed over there at the St. Anne Community Center last year, but I'm very familiar with that area. So going from a small area to that has got to be wild.
It was a culture shock, and not only just because of the logistics of everything, but also the people. So that's something that I've kind of come to know as well, is that your geographical location, the people that are associated with it and your customer base, those two things tie together so much. So I was really used to a certain type of customer base, and then I'm down there on the Rock Road and I have to sell to a different, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these people don't like me. I don't know how to act with them. Different. Yes, very different. And so, but it was cool. It's all those little lessons that you have to go through, and the challenges. It really helps to, shape you into a more conformed, person, employee, professional, whatever you're doing.
People always ask that about business. Like, would you have done something different? No, because all of my jobs, like there's things I pull from them. You said the metrics. When I worked at Jiffy Lube, I was an assistant manager, store manager. It was all about our metrics. Mm-hmm. And my district manager, Kevin, good friend of mine, taught me how to break those down and how to set them. And it's something I still do to this day. With my day, I will set goals for myself based on a lot of the times that I used then.
Yes.
We would have an early bird special. So I had certain parameters that I had to hit every day by the time that was over with to ensure that I had a great day. And then at noon, we had other parameters. We would have things in place to where I always hit my budgets, but it wasn't because where a lot of stores would just, by the end of the day, then they're panicking, they're hammering every customer that comes in. I would have already hit most of my quotas. Like, so if I needed to sell 10 large services that day, I would make my goal 10 by noon, 14 for the day, or 12 for the day. So then when I would hit 10 at noon, I'd be like, man, I got 4 more to go. When in actuality, I'd already hit my budget.
Right.
And by hitting my sales parameters, the math worked out to where I would then hit my overall budget. And in order to hit those, I had to meet my car parameter. So I would make sure that we were constantly bringing new cars in, but I wasn't thinking of it like, okay, the boss wants 20 cars a day, wants this, not. I was thinking of, okay, by 9, I have to have done 10 cars.
Yeah, you're breaking it out. And
yes,
that's really, I think that's such a useful tool to accomplish goals. And when you're trying to grow, whether it's, as a professional or, just as a person, having baby steps, like little bite-sized goals that you can accomplish. And I think that's really cool that you implemented like those timestamps too.
Yes.
Because that's helpful to just keep on track. Because, you could walk into any store on any given day and just see employees, like, oh, we're not busy right
They're
now.
chill.
Just chill, just whatever. And, of course, when I was in my younger 20s, I could have been that person at some point in time too. I really wasn't, though. I've always had like a great work ethic.
Yeah.
So if we had downtime, I was the one like cleaning the shelves and, organizing, doing inventory, things like that, until there was literally nothing to be done. But little baby steps is not bad. And people really look at growth and, I'm really ambitious. So I want something right now, and I want the whole big cheeseburger right now. And it's just that it's almost not even attainable. You have to take steps. You have to write out your goals. And so I'm kind of the same way. I start my days out with like a list, and I always constantly.
I was going to say, I always have my list. I have time notations.
Yes.
Ed Milet has a thing where he talks about breaking his day into 3 pieces.
Okay.
And he goes, the way he looks at it, he breaks it into, I think it's 4-hour time slots. I'd have to go back and re-listen to it because I listen to so much content. I get it mixed up. But he breaks each of his days down. And I've done that for years. I didn't realize I did it until he talked about it. I'm like, oh, that's basically what I'm doing. That's really cool. But he says it, he goes, I'm breaking each day down into 3 days.
Wow.
I've got this day, I'm doing all of this. This day, I'm working 3 days. He goes, if I'm working 3 days, if I have 3 work days built into one day, because you're only putting in an 8-hour shift and I break mine into this, now I'm working 3 days a week or 3 days a day, every day of the week. How are you going to catch me?
Exactly. Because
if you're working an 8-hour day at a job, by Friday, you've worked 5 days. He goes, I've worked 15.
Wow.
How are you going to get ahead of me? And it was really cool because I've always kind of broke my day into sections, but I never looked at it through his eyes.
Right.
And when I heard that, I actually remember where I was. I was driving down South Lincoln past the park, and I was like, whoa, that was like the most mind-blowing thing that I had heard him say. I was like, that was so cool. But there's some people like us that do that. And people, I think, tend to think, oh, they're greedy or they're self-conscious or whatever. And it's like, no, I just want to be better than I was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
If I go to the gym, I'm going because I want to work out harder than I did the other day. Or if I'm competing in a tournament, I just competed this weekend. My instructor and I were looking at how I did. And I was like, ooh, I liked this and I like that. I was like, we need another tournament because I want to tweak a few things. I want to do better than I already did.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are just built that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what takes us to the levels that our businesses go or our jobs go, is that constant pursuit of perfection and just doing better because I know what I can do. I know what I'm capable of.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't hit that yet. So
Right.
I'm constantly working towards it. You're constantly working towards that. You had jobs that have taught you X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to implement them, and then who knows where you can go with it.
Okay.
I thought for years maybe it was just I was going to have a big painting company, and then I realized that all those lessons were for me to then help other people have one. Like everything's constantly changing. Nothing's set in stone.
Right. And it's segueing into like your next chapter, and you didn't even know that was, where
You
it
know
was
there
going
was
to go.
another chapter. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that's really cool for people to realize too, is that you can take your position no matter where you are right now. You are not stuck as long as you tell yourself that you are not. Wherever you want to go, you can get there. You just have to make yourself do it. And baby steps are, I think, the key. I think it's just such a good practice. And it can be anything, and not even for, just professional development, but your personal growth as well.
Yeah.
Drinking more water. There's all sort of cool things that you can do to, reach your goals, but you have to make yourself do it because nobody else is going to.
Well, and it takes time too. I think
Sure,
everybody
absolutely.
hits and I'm guilty of this too, like hit the gym for 3 days and watch what you eat, no pizza for 3 days. And then you're like, no abs? What the hell? And I think people think that sometimes. I was lucky that I've always looked at things like on a long-term plan. Like I broke down a lot of stuff I have going on with my businesses recently. And I was like, but that's actually a 3-year plan because by 45, I've got this, this, and this. And my office manager I was talking to about it was like, good Lord, how tired are you? I'm like, I'm not. But I'm doing all of this to do that. Like that's my brain has to do that.
Right.
Like,
And your excitement fuels you.
yes.
Yeah.
And your pursuit of just getting better. You obviously want to do better at what you do. You want to offer, like, the amount of knowledge that you have about insurance is probably insane in your head because of how quickly you're able to put out, and you're like, and then legislation's changing. So you're obviously studying stuff that hasn't happened yet.
Sure. And you have to, because there's so many compliance and regulations that I do trainings every summer, and I have to, especially for Medicare. So Medicare is very, very heavily regulated. So every year all Medicare agents have to take what's called the AHIP exam. And so you get a study course. You have to take the exam, you have to pass the exam. And that's just the first step, because every carrier that you're contracted with, you also have to take their trainings to sell for that plan year, because everything is so different year from year.
Constantly and continuing.
Yes.
Education.
And so it is really neat. And I think that is really important for a lot of professionals to continue their trainings. And I'm not the only one, because, insurance agents, and I'm sure so many other professionals across the board, they have to take continuing education courses. So of course, with that being implemented, it's wide knowledge that, we have to have this material, this information, these trainings, continue that education, continue, and especially as the economy evolves, especially as legislation changes. So just staying up to date with all these different facets. And so health insurance last year was not, everything that I'm dealing with this year. And next year, it's even going to be a different ball game. So it is going to be a continuously revolving door.
Well, everything's constantly changing. The world's changing. People's needs are changing. I mean, pre-COVID to now.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a huge difference that if you don't take it like that. I was at a seminar once for martial arts, and the instructor got up, and I currently had opened my school. Ben was a baby, so that was 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Had the school for like 5 years, and I hadn't been training with anyone. I'd been just teaching and doing my classes, and I kind of missed it because I always loved martial arts. And when he started speaking at the seminar, he said, if you're going to continue to teach, you must always be a student. And that stuck with me a long time. I went on to get a rank under that gentleman and do stuff with him. And it's something that I've constantly done, is I always train, whether it's about painting, whether it's, watching content, or it's training, going to another tournament, training under a martial arts instructor, listening to my students' feedback. I just wrote a book, and I had one of my 17-year-old black belts who's really smart proof it. And she's got some really interesting feedback I seen this morning. And I told her, I said, hey, let's have a chat about it tonight. Like, having that open mindset is going to allow you to continue to grow.
Yeah.
This is just the stage you're at now.
Right.
It's not where you're going to be. And I feel like so many people get to a stage in life,
And they want to stay stagnant.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And that has always scared the hell out of me. Even when I was a painter and I was learning all the things that painters did, I was like, shit, what am I going to do once I learn it all? Like, once I've learned how to use all the different tools and I painted all the different things.
I was so the
Oh no, what am I
opposite.
going to do?
So like, kind of in hindsight, looking back, like as I was growing into myself, like becoming an adult, I thought that stagnant place, like that comfortability and predictability, and just, business as usual, it's like, that's where you make
That's
it.
the goal.
That's adult. Like you know what you're doing every day. You have all the knowledge that you could possibly, have. And I thought that it was just a place that you got to, and you stayed there, and you're just on cruise control for the rest of forever. And no, it's not.
But I think it was at one point. I
Really?
think for earlier generations, it probably was. I think for, people coming up at different periods, because of where technology and everything was, you get like, I'm 42. When I was in school, we didn't have YouTube. now I tell my students all the time, I'm like, dude, have you checked out some of this stuff? Like I send them reels and stuff on great techniques.
Because it's amazing.
There's always more to learn. I think at one point in time, generationally, people did get to a level and that was it. You had your job, you worked there till you retired. Things weren't evolving as fast as they are in today's day and age. Things are just changing so much on such a fast level now that we can't keep up.
Well, it's true. Everything is very, very rapid. And I don't know, that kind of reminds me, have you ever heard of I think it's a philosophy, the hierarchy of needs?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so it's like this psychology, and I don't know if it's a philosophy or what this really is, but the hierarchy of needs is basically your peak self is when you reach self-actualization, but you can't reach self-actualization until certain needs are met. So like people who don't have certain needs met at the bottom, they can't progress forward until those needs are met.
Oh, okay.
And so I think that's just interesting. It kind of like pulls into, who's rising and how can they rise and different things like that. Because when we talk about, people as a whole and people who are trying to go through personal development or professional development, just keeping in mind that not everybody is going to be able to, get past or break through certain aspects of their lives because of, surrounding circumstances.
Well, maybe what they've been taught, or actually, that makes a lot of sense because I talked to some of my teen instructors at school, do all the private lessons. And the other night I had a student come in a couple weeks ago, and the one black belt, she does privates and not as much as the others. And she goes, okay, we're going to do this. She was making this like list out. And I was like, hey, stop. I was like, have you ever watched that student walk? Yeah. I was like, do they walk normal? Or they have a different way of carrying themselves? And I was like, they're very awkward. They move very awkward. But if you talk to him, his brain's not doing the same thing yours is. He's very animated, thinking of other things. I was like, you need to slow him down and do some basics because he's not going to react the way you do. You've been here with me for 6 years. I could take you through that list and we could make one of your forms top level ready in 2 weeks. You need to get him to slow down, bend his knees, and just focus a little bit. And she goes, makes sense. I'm like, yeah, you can't fix things that are just human nature. There are some people that just move differently. That's going to take years and years. That's going to take them being at a maturity level that they want to try to fix that. Mm-hmm. You can't take them that place yet.
Yeah. And
she was, wow. And that kind of relates to that. You
got to meet people where they are.
Yes.
Yes. Because, you can have all kinds of expectations and, some people, they're not going to be able to rise because, there's something else there.
Yes.
And so meeting people where they're at and, just really taking that into consideration. And I think that's really important when you work in, certain roles, that customer service is such a big and important, role that you're going to play in that. Because everybody, like we previously said, we all got stuff going on constantly. Everybody is a unique individual. But if you take the time to meet somebody where they're at, that's where that relationship can really, blossom. And
well, what most of us are doing, there's a lot of the gurus online that sales is this, you got to close with this, you got to say this. But at the end of the day, we're not all doing sales. We're doing customer service.
Exactly.
You're helping a customer because I have bid jobs for people. I went and bid it, gave them great customer service, talked to them. They didn't use me. They went with their buddy Billy down the street to do it way cheaper. Mm-hmm. And then they've called me because the one example, it was a friend of mine's aunt. And so, but then they called me because they're like, hey, this guy's doing all the, should they do this? And I was sitting there, I'm like,
why do I have to be the expert?
But I gave them the good customer service and I ended up getting 4 jobs from them because they told everyone, don't use the guy we use. Don't make the mistake. Use Matt. And that taught me a lesson because I didn't want to, but I be honest, I only responded to him because their nephew is a good friend of mine. And I was like, all right, dude. And I was texting him like, dude, I'm a murderer, your aunt. But I helped them, but because we're all at the end, it is customer service. I've had so many customers. I've had really wealthy customers call us about painting a bathroom. Mm-hmm. Go over, give them great service, treat them right. Mm-hmm. Whereas they had told me later, I ended up painting hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff for them. The bathroom was just a test.
Right.
And they told me, other people come over, like, yeah, whatever, I'll paint your bathroom. They give them a biggie blown up price for it. Mm-hmm. I just bid a $50,000 job last week repainting something. They had someone come out and give them a quote to paint just the dining room on this bed and breakfast. They bid the dining room at what I bid the entire building for. And they only did it because they thought these people were rich.
Yeah, like they knew that they could inflate it.
Yes, and there was and it was obnoxiously inflated because they just saw a big house, lots of property. These people must be, yes. And it cost them the whole thing. Now I'm painting the entire project. I gave them a realistic price, spent time with them because it's customer service.
Right. And it's the right thing to do.
Customer service,
yes.
Walking them through it. It is the right thing to do, but even if we say it's the right thing to do, it's our job. It's customer service. I recently gave out flyers to everyone at the school going, why are you here? Like, what is your goal? What are you wanting your children to obtain from class? And the kids had a section to be like, what do you want to learn?
Yeah.
Because that's my job, is to provide that value and to help them with that stuff. But I don't always have the accessibility to have that conversation when we onboard them when they come in.
Sure.
But that's with you. What are your needs? Like if someone walked in, you immediately went right into, multi-level health insurance for employees, and they don't offer health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not what we're here for. What is it you need?
Right.
You have to have that customer service aspect.
Absolutely.
You can be the best salesperson ever, but if you sell them insurance for their employees, they don't have employees yet, that's kind of not gonna work.
And I mean, the sales aspect, it's like technically you are in sales, but
yes.
I don't feel like, I'm necessarily selling.
You're not selling.
Yeah. And for me, I have a lot of regulations, so I can't just go prospect, and I can't go knock on doors, and I can't be disruptive. I have to be good enough that people recognize that, I am an expert in this field, that I'm trustworthy, and that I'm likable. And that's just something, that's the way that it's got to be, just because, you can't solicit to Medicare beneficiaries, and business owners are busy. They have those, guardrails in place. Like, you can't just roll up into a business and be like, hey, I want to quote your health insurance, please.
Nothing would frustrate me more. I had a lady come drop in the Taekwondo school a couple 2 months ago to pitch me on something. Hadn't even taken the time to find out I was already a customer at her company.
Oh my gosh.
And it didn't really irritate me, but I go up there early, set up. I have a big front desk, but like when the guy built it, he goes, you want a little area here to where like you can sit down in a chair and work so people don't see you're here? And I was like, nah, I don't need. Biggest regret of my life.
Oh no.
But they came in and it wasted, we talked, we chatted, whatever, wasn't a big deal, but hadn't even done the due diligence. That stuff can be frustrating. Some people will be like, oh, these big, like I can understand like a Jeff Bezos or one of these guys probably can be pretty grumpy to people because they have so many people come in a different direction.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. You can't just show up places and cold call and drop in. That will frustrate. When I first opened the Taekwondo school, I actually had a guy selling ad space knock, because I went back to use a restroom, knocked on the bathroom door because there was no one in the lobby. I'm like, yeah, because I was in there by myself a minute before that. Oh, hey, you got some time? Yeah, I guess go sit in the office, bud. This is getting awkward. I literally had that happen. After that, I would always lock the door before I went to the restroom or walk out to my car. I remember that was a hilarious one of like, wow, boundaries.
I know.
Like maybe hang out in the lobby. I wasn't back there that long.
That is so funny. I mean, but
and it was all the way at the back of the building. Like they had to walk all the way through to come back there. It was very awkward.
People are funny. I mean, I'm sure that so many people that do customer service roles can just relate to that and have, additional stories, with it's almost obnoxious, how much expectations. I'm the customer and I need you to do this. And because I'm the customer, you need to do this right this second.
Yeah.
And so appeasing everybody is it's never going to be a thing. You're never going to be able to make everybody happy. And sometimes it feels like, you work your booty off for the people that just don't appreciate it. Yeah. And so, but that's the name of the game. You just got to do it anyway. You got to put your best foot forward. Always try your hardest. Some people appreciate it. And that is the most wonderful feeling when my beneficiaries leave my office and they want to give me hugs and they are just so appreciative. It is so worth everything. Even the ones that, tell me, really, really mean things, which is very few and far between. And
you're going to get that though. Anytime you deal with the public, because like we spoke earlier, you don't know where they're coming from.
Right.
I have dealt with people I tell people all the time, going into their houses to bid paint jobs, man, you never know. It's one of the reasons people have been like, oh, does Casey ever do bids? No, she's not going to creepers' houses. Like I've been in some weird ones. I've walked into so many power struggles between husbands and wives where the wife books the paint job or the husband books the paint job. I've showed up before to people going, what the hell are you doing here? Susie booked us for a bid today. And then they'll call and you can hear them in the back arguing with their spouse. It's like, oh, this is just awesome.
Yes.
Like, you don't know where they're coming from. Those people were super nasty to me. And I was like, whatever, I'm just here to bid your paint job. Like, I get a kick out of it now. But at the beginning, I'd get really flustered. So I got better stuff to do today.
Yeah.
But you don't know what they're coming from. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know, I've been on bids that felt really weird. Well, then you find out it was the grandparents' house. They passed away. The person, you don't, and not everyone, I'm a very open book. Not everybody's like that.
Right.
You kind of got to chat them. You got to figure out what is it they need. And that's, again, a huge part that having a professional like yourself can sit down and really find out their needs, and can walk them through that. And that's something that a lot of your previous jobs have helped with. Obviously your personality is outgoing, so that helps.
It does.
And constantly striving to get better. We're not all perfect.
So go with your gut and what is going to give you peace. Like what I'm going to do, I'm not going to give you my opinion. I'm going to do a market analysis and make some recommendations based on the discussions that we've had. And I'm going to present it to you and I'm going to give you multiple options, but you have to make that decision and you have to make a decision that internally gives you peace inside too. And with, when you're doing certain things where you have to buy an insurance product, like say you're aging into Medicare, it's really stressful and it's really anxiety inducing for a lot of people because it's new. And I'm sure you've probably experienced that too. Like if you're working with a contractor and it's their first, subdivision or whatever, something new is scary for everybody. And so it really hypes up, your emotions and different things. And it makes it it makes it really difficult to make a decision sometimes because people don't want to make mistakes. People want to make the best decision. And when, you're looking at a product that is so multivariable, like a health insurance product, it is very difficult to make a decision. So that's another thing too that I really like to keep a priority in when I'm, helping people is, you have to be peaceful about this and you have to feel okay about it because if you have internal turmoil, 3 months down the road, you're going to be calling me like really anxious about something because you feel like you didn't make the right decision and you don't like the plan that you're on. And that makes my life bad and that makes your life bad. So from the get-go, that is the main goal, is trying to identify the right plan for you and make sure that you feel okay with it. And
that they fully understand it.
Exactly.
Too. A lot of people are going to come in, they're going to sign up, everything's great, they're making their premium. And then they use it and it's like, whoa, what's this? Oh, maybe they didn't understand how a deductible works.
And sometimes people forget. So
or they forget.
If you're working with a client and maybe, so some of mine that have a little bit more anxiety or fear or, just internal turmoil, we'll meet like 3 different times.
Oh, for sure.
And so, within large discussions, people forget some of the details. So note keeping on my end has been huge. Just to document our conversations, know what we talked about, know what those stress points were for that client, so that when I do get that call, it's like, okay, all right, well, we did talk about this. Like, do you remember this conversation? And then sometimes, it can put them more at ease. And I think with customer service, a lot of it is putting your client at ease about whatever is going on, because anything can be fixed. We can fix the problems. The bill didn't come in the mail like it was supposed to, or something didn't get put on auto pay and a payment got missed. Okay, we can fix it. We can fix everything. The biggest thing is that people want to be put at ease about the problem that they're presenting to you.
Yes, and that you can fix it. I went on jobs for a guy, showed up one time, he's like, this is a train wreck. I'm like, actually, it's a paint job. What's the issue? And all it was some light, it was just some texture underneath showing. I'm like, that's easy fix. We'll come back, no problem. But one thing I've run into with people too, and I like you said about the note taking. It's something I'm still working on improving myself. Is how to do better notes, because I am on a job site and I'm a notebook guy. So I jot notebooks all the time.
Right.
But we have a lot of customers that will go to show up and the work order, because people do not read their stuff that they sign. And they'll say, oh no, because they'll tell the crew, no, you're supposed to do this, this, and this. Guys are like, no, we're not. Or they'll call into the office, well, Matt said, in case he's like, no, he didn't. He wouldn't say that. He doesn't even phrase things that way. what I find is customers will get 4 or 5 quotes. Then they'll go with us, and in their mind, maybe the guy that was before me said, well, we'll show up at 9 a.m. and we'll do this and we can do that to accommodate. Whereas I'm very blunt with people. We start at 7. My crews and I meet at the shop at 6. They're on the job site by 7. They're off by 3:15. That's very important to me, so they get home to their families. And I used to just get upset. I'm like, why are all these people lying all the time? Like, why is there no morals anymore? Like, I would get really upset about it. And then I started paying attention to business cards. Like when I was on a job site, if people had multiple cards laying around, and I never did that before. Some people will leave them out so they're getting other quotes. Right. It's like, whatever, I don't care. Because I'll even point it out now because I'm normally friends with all the guys. They got their cards on. I'm like, oh yeah, how's Brian doing? But I then realized that they were just kind of getting the conversations jumbled. And that's another thing that you have to remember, that, okay, because this customer will call, and I've got a really good recall for that stuff, but not always. Like between Casey and I, normally we can be like, oh no, that was this person, it was this house, I remember that. Or they'll call and be like, oh, you know what, I had mentioned to Matt while he was here that the one room had this really ugly wallpaper, how much to take that off? I don't remember. Like they said it in conversation and I went, yeah, it's really ugly, and we moved on. Or I said I loved it. A customer the other day, the whole house was faux painted. She's like, isn't it just a shame to paint over it? I'm like, no, not at all. This house is not going to sell. I called referred her to a realtor. And I was like, bro, you've got to have her paint the whole house. Not that I need the work, but you're not selling. It's over $1 million house.
Oh, geez. I'm sure they want that painted.
The dining room's painted like it has garland hanging down. Like, I'll show you pictures when it's done. It's a hoot, but I gave him a heads up. But like, it's $1 million house, and there's hot pink bedrooms.
Oh, geez.
Mint green carpet. There's rope glued to a ceiling in one room.
Okay,
as
yes,
like
that sounds absolutely beautiful.
I was like, bro, I'm not trying to up my paint job here, but you're not selling this house $1 million like that. There's no way. But keeping those notes so that I remember, okay, that client was this, because as soon as we all kind of got done helping him find an agent, then I found out the husband doesn't want an agent, the wife wants an agent, the husband doesn't want a painter, he's trying to do it. I'm like, okay, this was a whole thing
that you had to uncover. But
then I have to try to recall that later. So working on that note system, especially for what you're doing, because there's so many details and there's so in depth. There's also a thing to keep in mind, like there's a lot of bad content out there too. There's a lot of BS content that want to be gurus, or maybe even people that their heart's in the right spot, but they're just uneducated themselves, put out.
Spewing it out. That's actually a very good point. And I've run across that a lot of times. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions, especially surrounding the marketplace and ACA plans, but for anything really. I mean, I see it on group benefits, I see it on Medicare, and I see it on the individual side. And so everything that you see online, you have to take with a grain of salt.
Even if it has 100,000 views, you may check the comments and everybody's like, phony. Like, it's not always meaning that it's right. I find a lot of that.
So reputable sources is something that I really like to provide my clients with, especially on Medicare. And so those are going to be Medicare.gov, especially CMS.gov, and Social Security website, because when it comes from those sources, this is true and factual information. This is where, like, this is top of the line.
Clickbait's real.
Exactly.
Clickbait's real.
And, sometimes some agencies will put out blogs and different things, but you have to be careful, because with insurance, all insurance, state lines matter. And so, maybe you're looking at something online and you don't realize that you're looking at something for Illinois instead of Missouri. Or if you're looking at some type of feed about roof claims or home claims, and people are saying, yada, my agent did XYZ, and, why isn't mine doing this? Okay, but what state are we talking about here? And,
how old was it? When you're talking about stuff like that, we come across that with all this hail damage lately. People want deck stained. My insurance is going to cover it. No, they're not. They're going to cover like not even 80%.
Right.
Like they're just not. I've bid several of them. They're not. There's depreciation. You haven't done this, whatever. People just don't see that. They think they have insurance. It just covers it all.
Yes.
And again, there's a lot of incompetent information. There's a lot of incomplete information. There's a lot of stuff that is intentionally left short to get people to get into the comments. It's a whole art to it.
It is true. And
it makes our lives hard.
Yeah. And in Medicare, especially, it's misrepresentation.
Yes.
And so, yes, they are technically sending out true factual facts, like true facts, but they don't apply to everybody.
Yes.
And it's like a clickbait kind of thing. With Medicare, people do a lot of mailers because there's no compliance about that. You can mail anything, not really anything. I take that back.
Yeah,
Not anything.
just about.
But mailers are very popular because there's not a lot, it's compliant, and so there's not too many regulations around it. So that's why a lot of beneficiaries, 64, 65, they're just getting bombarded with everything.
And they're overwhelmed. They're nervous. My
Yes.
parents have been guilty of it. My dad brought some paperwork in one time. Hey, I need you to fill this out for this attorney. I've had some lung issues. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, no. He goes, why not? I was like, well, because they want my social security number and all my private information. Why do they need that? You're suing someone, not me. I was like, no. And I'm pretty sure he went home and put all my crap on there anyways, because that's solely something he would do.
Right.
I was like, my identity gets stolen. You're going to need medical.
Yes.
Because I was livid, because I was like, because he'd already started filling part of it out for my sister. And I'm like, she's going to be really thrilled you're putting her personal information on there.
Geez,
but they
that's so
fall
scary.
for it. These poor people, they don't know any better. I'll go into their homes and deal with them when painting or whatnot. And you feel for them because they're not attached to where society's at these days.
Right.
They're not understanding it. And so then it's important that there are people like you that are ethical and are going to walk them through that and take them down that road of how this really is going to apply for them. And maybe it's a good thing. Maybe they're going to get way more than what they thought, or maybe it's going to be less.
Yeah, exactly. And the good thing is that there's always a resource that you can call. So if you don't have a Medicare agent that you're working with, because you don't necessarily have to have an agent to get a plan. You can get on Medicare.gov, look at plans yourself, and enroll from there. Very difficult to do. I would not recommend that ever, but it is possible. So there's always somebody that you can cross-reference with. So each state has it's called a SHIP program. And so they help beneficiaries kind of navigate and liaison different things. Sometimes they're useful. Sometimes people, most of the time I feel like people prefer to work one-on-one with somebody. And I prefer that too, because, if you're over the phone, sometimes it feels like you're going in blind. And
I don't like over the phone.
I don't either. I feel like there's just something disconnecting there. And so when you're in person, face to face, and addressing certain things, I feel like there's a more comfort, like there's just more comfortability with it. But what I tell my beneficiaries is, if you get something fishy, just give me a call and we'll check it out. Sometimes it's legitimate, in which case I just help one of my beneficiaries complete an application to get some additional help, and it was legitimate, but he was scared when he got it.
Yeah. It freaks you out.
Yeah.
Especially because that stuff comes so official looking.
Yeah. Well, and they know, so there's a lot of, education now that, beware of scams and make sure to identify certain things. So, I mean, there's a lot of more education nowadays, which I really like. It's very important. But yeah, one of my beneficiaries called me one time and they're like, hey, we got this postcard from this other agent and they said that we could get this plan and it was going to give us healthy foods and it was going to give us this certain dollar allotment and all these things. There was all these boxes. And so I took a look at the postcard and I'm like, okay, yes, but no. Yes, this exists, but not for you, because there's different subcategories that you could fall into. So there's dual eligible, which means that you're eligible for Medicaid and Medicare.
Yeah.
And that opens up a whole new subset of plans that only those specific beneficiaries are eligible to enroll in. And they have very rich benefits and they're very attractive, and people want to advertise the benefits that those plans, give, but they're not for everybody. They're only if you qualify.
Yeah.
So it's very misleading, when agents, advertise that I can get you this and I can get you that. Yes, but no. Yes, technically what they're saying is true. They do represent these plans, but they're not for everybody. They're not for you. And so just having that, in your mind, that the greener pasture isn't always there. Sometimes, it's, I wouldn't say false, but just not for you.
Depends on where you fall at.
Exactly.
There's a lot of promises made. It's just like anything. Car sales do it, whatever. Everybody does it to bring the clients in and then to educate them. And it's just watching that and finding that professional. So if people listen to the podcast want to find you, what's a good ways to find you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always call the office. That's a really big one. So K.Flynn Insurance, you can find us on Google. You can find us on Facebook. And the office number is 636-528-6363. I have email, I have Facebook, and I also have Instagram. It's not super popular right now. I'm still trying to grow it, but I'm around. And, I'm in the community. You and I are both in Rotary together. We do a lot for LACOA and different, organizations around the community. So K.Flynn Insurance, just ask for Sheany Miller, and I'm your gal for anything health insurance and benefits.
That's awesome. And it's easy to find them too, guys, because at the beginning of this podcast or a lot of the episodes, they are sponsored the podcast, so our information's on there. They have been great to us, and we definitely recommend you support them and show them that love and check everything out. This is just another great podcast episode. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you very much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Hope you guys love it and show the support, like, subscribe, and share so we can get the word out there and show the Lincoln County community all the great people that are here.
Absolutely.